doing AP physics, or whether you're watching something, videos that you make, like learning these skills in STEM allows you to see the world differently. And so I may have done engineering for 8 years of my life at university level, but it changes the way I see everything now. Whether it's watching a biology video or a chemistry video, the TV stuff that I've done is very, it's wide-ranging in terms of science. And the curiosity, the skills that I've gained as a result of studying engineering, as a result of studying physics and then going on to engineering, is with me for life. So.
Can I ask her a question? Am I allowed to?
Go for it. Substitute moderator.
Okay, question. So sometimes being a TV presenter or having the curriculum, you have to give a presentation about something you don't really care about. I'm assuming, like, I see TV reporters, they're like, we're reporting for the Sumter County pig races or something like that. And they're just giving the information. Do you ever feel like, for instance, if there's an episode on the coefficient of restitution or something like that, do you ever feel like, oh man, now we've got to do this and make it interesting? Do you ever feel that way?
I've always done science and tech reporting.
Oh, so you don't do pig races or anything like that? Okay. So you've always enjoyed what you do. Do you get to say no if you don't want to?
Yeah, I said no a lot to TV stuff that doesn't fit my interests.
Awesome.
Like I did a series for BBC America called No Kitchen Required. It was all about cooking in crazy places around the world. And I did that because I really wanted to meet these indigenous cultures and see how they lived. And I got to travel and stuff like that. So I always do things where I have a genuine interest. So.
I think that's key, is never fake like you're interested in something you're not.
It just doesn't work on TV or online. Like if you're faking an interest in anything, people can tell.
I think that even comes into play, like occasionally, I'm sure you get this, but like I will get contacted by research groups or organizations that are like, hey, we have this cool thing that we want to explain, like we want to help explaining and sharing with the public. And for me, like, if I am not interested in it and I don't care about it, then I can't do I can't make a good video about it. And what it takes is like, I basically tell them like, your job is to convince me why I care and get me excited about it, because then I can make a good video about it.
So this is a perfect lead-in to my next question. What we do is more personal than say traditional science and tech journalism on television. And the people behind these videos are also complex. And Henry, you had a relationship project earlier this year during the Democratic debates. And, how does things like that play into also trying to teach people, also making them do something?
Right. I think just for context, what we had happen was from Minute Earth, we were asked to submit some video questions that played during one of the Democratic presidential debates, and we decided to make some videos about climate science and ask a question about what the candidates were going to do about the energy and being able to have clean energy. And this is like a personal thing, and a lot of people who watch the videos normally might not be, because this is a science issue that's been politicized, they might have a different political stance on it than we do. And this is a question that we talk about a lot, and I think Destin thinks about this as well. Like, how much of your personal beliefs and agenda that are kind of not necessarily as closely tied to the science, how much of those do you let creep in? And of course, like they come through naturally just because you are you, and in the way that you have a perspective and you see things. But for at least with Minute Earth, that's something that we actually have to talk about because we have multiple people working on it, and the different people have different perspectives and different values and different beliefs. And so when you have a team of people, it becomes this interesting challenge. Like Destin can make a video that fits with his beliefs and his values, even if he doesn't explicitly talk about it. But when you have 3 or 4 people and they have slightly different beliefs and values, and you want to make a video, even sometimes simple videos that you don't think would have anything to do with politics or beliefs, like we'll have like discussions and arguments about how you should approach it. Another example is talking about the issue of like the anti-vax movement, and like how should you approach trying to communicate about vaccines and the fact that vaccines are they're safe and they're really, really important for society, and people should all get their kids vaccinated. If you have kids or are going to have kids, get them vaccinated, please, so that we don't have mass outbreaks. But the question is like, is that an effective way of doing it? Am I like, is shaming and yelling at people an effective way of getting them to change? Or like, did I just make those of you who don't believe in vaccination like just get into your shell and build a barrier, and now you're just like, oh, this is another guy who's like propaganda for the machine. And so this is the argument we have, like, how do you actually, like, if you're trying to make change and change people, because people can change. It's hard to change people's perspectives on things, but if you're trying to change somebody's perspective and open their eyes and open their mind to something, to a different possibility from what they thought, that's a hard question. And that's something that I think Des does a really good job on, is with his approach of like start with personal and ramp that down and increase the technical later, is he gets you to buy in, at least for the 5 minutes or 10 minutes of the video, he gets you to buy in with him and walk on this journey for a little while, and then you get to experience something else, and then afterwards you get to decide like whether or not you thought it was interesting or valuable or valid or how you wanted to inform your life. But you at least have gone on that little bit of a journey and your mind was open for 5 minutes. And that's like, if you don't do that, then you don't have any hope, I don't think.
All right, so what the beliefs Henry was talking about, I'm a Christian, and that weirds a lot of people out because I do a lot of science, but I'm okay with that. I'm not intimidated by that. So what you're talking about is how much of that do I let come through in videos? And I think because we are in this explainer type role, I think it is important to, there is a line where you have a belief, and this thing is my personal belief on something. And so my personal policy is I'd never try to cross that line and say, okay, well, these are the facts, this is the information I know, and everybody will agree on this information. But this part over here, that is my belief, and I acknowledge that that is a threshold of belief that has been met. And as an explainer of big things on YouTube, and people associate a certain amount of credibility with that, I personally don't feel like it's okay for me to project my beliefs on other people. That's my personal opinion. But the way I do that is, I'm a human, I'm a person, and if people see the kind of person I am, and they're like, oh, that guy's pretty interesting, and oh, by the way, he's got those weird beliefs that I don't believe. Maybe I'll think about him in a more direct way. Maybe I'll be intelligent and respectful and not just dismiss that person as every other stereotype I've seen of that individual belief on the internet, and maybe I'll be open-minded. And so that's my goal, is on both sides of the fence, because believe it or not, I get it from both sides. And so my goal is for people to be open-minded and intelligent, respectful, and intellectually honest. That's my personal goal, and I think that, as an explainer, is what we should strive for, is intellectual honesty, because I need to be open to the idea that I'm wrong, and I think we would all agree with that.
Shini, maybe on the other side of this, with your journalistic experience and also serving as the most classroom-like approach in Crash Course, do you ever find yourself pulling back from that, or is there a way for that more? Is there that view from nowhere approach?
I'm actually realizing that I'm kind of buffered against that whole belief kind of area of reporting, in a sense, because with Crash Course we are literally packaging facts in an entertaining way. So, it's very objective. I don't have to put my opinions in there, thank God, because that's why I like science and tech reporting, because I don't have to navigate that kind of territory. It's very much just giving scientific truth, and there's no debate on it. So I'm kind of immune to that area. I know, I did a piece on, but it was for television, but I did a piece on climate change, and we were mapping glaciers with NASA over Greenland. And, it's part of the climate change debate, but we were there to collect data. So there is no question. How the data is interpreted is, you can go into that. But I was very much there with the spectrometers and the altimeters collecting numbers. And that's the area of science that I want to stay in, because my opinion is private. It's kind of, if people want to know my opinion, I'll happily give it, but I don't want to create material that becomes controversial. I'm there to give the scientific facts.
Yeah, I just want to say that this is not just about vision, but it's also about other things where there might be controversy. Even within science, there are lots of areas where there's lots of debate, and this is something where people have personal opinions, and I think I have very strong opinions about, for example, certain things regarding string theory and quantum mechanics, and
Ooh, whoa.
you can see like I'm back away, sir. And so like I try to convey some of these things in the way that I explain or talk about when I talk about string theory, for example, like which I haven't done very much yet. But anytime I have talked about string theory, right, I'm very clear to say like this is an unconfirmed hypothesis, right? It's like, and not do the thing of saying that it's true the way, you know, because like the whole point, like there are no scientific facts. There are scientific things that have been, like ideas that have been confirmed or
I'm sorry, I
unconfirmed.
just have this idea of like a bunch of angry scientists tossing tables. You're wrong!
Oh yeah, physics convention, I did that.
So I think there's one song I did where I sort of like danced around the topic. Danced, literally, actually. And it was the climate change rap, and the hook went, whether we affect the weather or not, we gotta get our act together or not. So I sort of like tiptoeing or walking that tightrope to show both sides, or even if I have a strong opinion on it, to show the other side just a little bit, but then stick with like the thing that I have. I don't know, I think it's just music. Like, you have to put yourself into it, and I think some people will respect that and some people won't. But if they watched it, maybe they'll have that other idea in their head, and because it's a song, it's like stuck in their head.
So in the interest of time, we're not going to get to the final question that I was going to ask you guys about something else. As the moderator of a panel last year that dealt with, let's see, so when you want to approach a complex question, the first thing I do is Google it. And if you want to make videos about complex things, you might be intimidated with the success and skill of some of these people. And we could come up with a list of 50 unbelievable ways not to take things from the internet and parrot them or plagiarize them, but just a public service announcement to be careful where you're getting information and realize that you can always ask smarter people to help you out there.
And that doesn't mean anybody who communicates science, that probably means like a researcher.
Right. It's been a problem in some educational channels this year. I wanted to make sure it was on some stage. But I want to turn this over to you guys now. We have about 20 minutes left. Do we have microphones somewhere? Right over here. If you raise your hand, I will call on you. Please ask a question in the first 10 to 15 seconds of talking. Let's start way in the back, the black shirt there. And if you can direct your question to somebody, that'd be great too.
Good morning. This one's for Smarter Every Day. With the creation of videos happening literally every minute, what do you think about parallel creation when another creator creates something that you've been working on or just created?
Great question. That happens a lot. So several of us have been, I don't know, the best thing to do is team up with that person. I know Physics Girl has been working on a video recently, and it's the same topic that I've been exploring. And we were at this impasse. She could totally just upload it, but she reached out and we talked about it, and we're going to do a collab with it. So that's the best solution, is so that you do something that's mutually beneficial. The other option is just release it, because nobody owns the facts. And you shouldn't be disheartened by comparing yourself to other people and say, oh, well, Henry did that great video about how string theory is false. You should just release your video anyway, because, you know, it's you putting you into the video, so just release it.
The other thing is just like the Venn diagrams for the audiences of you and the other person probably don't perfectly overlap, so you're going to be reaching different people anyway.
Do it.
Right here, red shirt.
I'm going to direct this to, I think, Henry and Joe mostly, but to anyone who wants to reply. What are your thoughts on talking about topics that are not exactly in your field of expertise? And as an example, if you're a physicist, but then you want to speak about, say, vaccinations, which is more biology. And the reason I ask this is because there is a very famous YouTube channel that's not up here that started talking about vitamins and supplements that I really kind of turned me off about a year ago, and so I stopped following them because of that. And I think especially a lot of science, like hard science, has maybe a little less humility when talking about things like biology. And I found, especially among not just experts, but in like if you look at the comments and various journals and websites. And I was wondering what your thoughts on that were.
Well, I mean, I think even within the field that I was trained in, I am not an expert in most things, and so whatever you're doing, you have to really make sure that you are understanding it well. The key for Minute Earth, when we talk about things that we're not experts in, is to talk to the experts in that and try to understand from them. And I, when I'm doing stuff in physics, I often will also, in place of talking to experts, I will read their papers because I can read the paper and understand what their arguments are and what they're doing. But in other fields that I don't know as much about, it's definitely, let me have an hour-long Skype conversation with somebody who actually is the expert in this field. And then maybe even have them take a look at my script or the video and say, hey, do you have any problems with this? Did I mess anything up? Are there any? Because like I might write something that is the way that I think I understand it, and I think I understand it correctly, and then they say, oh, you missed this subtlety, like you need to change this little thing. And so definitely, it requires time and effort. You have to reach out to people who know about these things, and they have to be willing to volunteer their time to talk to you. So it's a much slower process to make a video if you're going to do that. But that if you're talking about something that you don't know about, and it is something that you can't just completely be confident that you know on your own, that you have to do something like that.
And from my perspective, I am a biologist, and again, the area of biology that I know a lot about is this tiny little pixel on the big screen of biology. But I like to say I went to college for 10 years to get, like graduate school and everything like that. But one of the great skills that comes out of science education, if it's done well, and if people spend time really thinking about it, is it gives you a framework. And sure, I know the facts and the knowledge is sitting in my brain for these parts of biology, but it does give me a framework on how to work through any question, to know that I'm checking the right boxes and asking the right questions about why something that I think is true, or finding people who are much smarter than me to answer those questions for me and be that interpreter. So I think there's a general scientific framework that you can use to approach any question.
Yeah, and I have a degree in fine arts, so for just about every song that I've done, I've had to reach out to the experts to help me and to go over my lyrics, and it's rewarding, and it also, it's just, go to the experts and use Twitter. Twitter is amazing.
Humility is the key. Be humble. Right here in the gray shirt up front.
Hello. This is kind of directed to Michael and Henry and Destin, sort of. And it kind of goes along with what you were saying about having to reach out to other people. How do you, I guess, cite your sources when it comes to collecting information from other people who know more about a subject than you? How do you kind of give credit where credit is due?
Well, there's always the doobly-doo. Just put every single link in the description of the video. That's what I tend to go to. Or sometimes I've worked with organizations who require that their information is put like in the video in the credits. So, and then I give them a shout out like after the video is released.
I have found that if I'm working with a university or something like that, that the professor or the researcher who's doing the topic, they're usually really excited about it because that one video will reach more people than their entire, academic history, or whatever you want to call it, of research papers. And so I always try to make sure to say the specific researcher by name in the video if I can.
Imagine what that would do to their power index. Any academics in the audience? What's purple shirt right there?
Hi, this question is mostly directed at Henry, but I'd love to hear from everyone. There's a bit of a problem on the internet and YouTube as well with people spreading misinformation in their videos and things that, you guys kind of touched on this, things that aren't facts and are opinions and are not scientifically validated. How do you handle it when it's someone you personally know in the community that accidentally spreads misinformation? How do you think situations like that should be handled?
I think it really depends on a case-by-case basis. If it's somebody that I know and it's something that I know that they did wrongly, and if it's somebody who I know has the values of like they're trying to spread the correct information, I will just tell them, hey, like there's this problem with this video, there's a part of it, and then they have that, then they know, and they have to make a decision about what to do. And it's one of these things where like the way that YouTube works is it's hard to, you can't make changes to videos after they're uploaded, so you either have to take it down and re-upload it, which people don't like doing, or you have to make an annotation and say, hey, I made a mistake. But then annotations don't work on mobile, so half the people watching the video won't see that. And I've made mistakes in my own videos, and it's this question of like how important is the mistake really, and that's something you have to gauge. On the other side of things are people who are either intentionally spreading misinformation or who don't care if they've said something wrong no matter what it is, like they're just there to get lots of views or whatever, and those people, it's, well, for one, I'm probably not friends with them. That's their view, so then I can't like tell them that, but that in those kind of situations, if I think it's important enough, then I'm, which is very rarely happen, but I might make a video in response to that, and not necessarily directly mentioning it at all, but trying to combat that kind of the misinformation that is out there.
I recently made a video with DeGrasse Tyson, and it was about a tweet he made about helicopters. And people, it's very, very rare that people actively spread misinformation on purpose. And so if you can ever just get the ear of the person and say, hey, I have some new information that you might not have had, can we talk about this? And I thought it was extremely gracious of Neil deGrasse Tyson to actually be involved in the video. And he basically said, hey man, I said this, but you're saying something else that's true. Explain it to me. That was a super humble position, and I have a lot of respect for the man for doing that. So that's the best case scenario right there.
I mean, if we're all purporting to be scientists, we're purporting to have open minds about everything and be willing to be convinced otherwise. The problem is when you're dealing with somebody who doesn't have that perspective.
Yeah, and one more thing. When I contacted him, it was from a position of humility. I said, hey, I want you to look better. I want to look better. And so it was not to like stick your thumb in somebody's eye because you're wrong and I'm right and I'm smarter than you kind of thing. It's important how you have that conversation.
I was just about to start the channel, the thumb in your eye.
Can I just add to that? Can I add to that?
Oh, sorry, yeah.
With television, it's such a completely different process because when you make a program, it's usually months before it actually airs. And so when you make a mistake, that's a big deal with TV. And what I found great about the digital space is that with our very first episode of Crash Course Physics, we used a small delta instead of a capital delta, or maybe the other way around. And when we broadcast it so many people made that comment and just told us, you've made a mistake. And the approach of the team was not to get, really flustered by this mistake we made, but actually kind of celebrate how immediate the response was in correcting something. Just by putting something online, we were able to all get together and go, actually, it's not a capital delta, it's a small delta. And
owned it real fast.
yeah, there's a real community spirit about that. And I don't necessarily fear making mistakes because, it's a collective kind of proofread.